Welcome back, everybody, to another Growth Support Conversation. My name is Neal, and today I'm joined by Kenji to talk about building a remote culture, which I'm super excited for because me and Kenji talk all the time, but this is the first time that we've actually really sat and actually had a official conversation in that sense. So really excited for it. Kenji, you want to introduce yourself and where you're coming from?
Yeah, I'm so excited to finally do an official talk because we keep but yeah, my name is Kenji Hayward, and I run the support team at Front. I've been here for 7 years now, but I've been in support for 13, and so it's all I know. I call myself a support purist. There's a lot of people who have kind of different trades and crafts in CX, and for better or worse, I've really just focused on support as my niche. And so when I joined my first tech company, I had moved from Tokyo. This is 13 years ago. And I joined a company called Revel in San Francisco, and I haven't looked back since. So I've been building teams for 12 of those 13 years, and I love it. You know, if I'm not working, I'm thinking about support. And if I'm not thinking about support, I'm writing about support. And if I'm not writing about it, I'm talking to Neal about support. My family hates it, but it's my hobby. It's become my hobby. I've integrated it into my life somehow.
My wife also says the same thing. She's like, I hate it that you have a job you love. It's just a thing.
To have, though.
Yeah, I think it's a good problem. But we're here to talk about building a remote culture, and I'm curious. I know that you've written about it publicly. You share a lot of information about Front's culture. You share a lot about your team and how you've built that culture as well. So I'm really curious to dig into some of those things and how you've built the culture around what you do in a remote world. Can you talk us through a bit more of the context and setup of Front so that people can understand kind of a little bit more of the context of your area?
Yeah, so Front is a support product. So just like, the help desk that you use, whatever that is, whatever you choose to use, Front's one of those options. The difference is that we are very heavy on collaboration. So that's the difference. Is you can have a smaller team, you can do more with less, because the sense of ownership around tickets is a little different with Front. We kind of share the load, and so we really think of the general inbox as everybody's, not problem, but that's everybody's queue. Versus like Neal has a queue, I have got 10 tickets, and we just kind of work in a silo. Front's very collaborative, which is a big part of why it works for remote teams, which we can get into because I'm happy to answer how we got to this point.
Nice. And so how big is your team, or like not big as in size, but big as in spread across the world? Where does it reach?
Yeah, it reaches all parts of the world. So we're obviously in the U.S., all over the U.S., West Coast, East Coast. We're in Europe, so we're in Ireland, France, not just Paris, but different parts of France. We've also recently expanded to the Philippines. So we've got one person out there. We've got one person in Australia. So that's kind of our APAC. And now we've got 3, and then potentially 2 more people by the end of this year joining in LATAM, so in Chile. So we're pretty globally, basically everywhere. So we're following the sun. But my whole thing is, I'm not so geo-specific. Like, I do have constraints where I can hire and where Front's legally able to hire. And so when I say remote, it's remote in this certain area. So which is very confusing sometimes. So I try to be really clear on the job descriptions. But for me, I just want to have the best pool of talent. And so I actually have a person who works in the US who lives in Nevada, works night hours, and that's an APAC person. Like, that's their preferred schedule. They love that, and I'm all for it if that's what they're for. And they've been doing that for 5 years. So for me, it's not so much about the region. I'm just looking for talent everywhere. And I think the wider net you cast, you have a better chance of just finding the best people.
I absolutely love that. I think that regardless of like, if you limit yourself to only one specific place, you're only going to find that areas of talent pool in that sense. So being able to open yourself up for flexibility where you can also meet people's needs. Like you mentioned, you have this person working completely off hours from what normal that time zone would be in that sense. You can kind of offer that flexibility as well, which I think is great. How do you go about building the culture of your team, because everyone is so spread out and geolocation and everyone is everywhere?
Yeah, and I can kind of, like, for context, we weren't always remote. And so when I started at Front, 7 years ago, for the first I want to say like 2.5 years, we were all in the office. So we only had a San Francisco team who was like, we sat together, had desk next to each other. And then we had a team in Paris because those are where the front offices were. And then obviously the pandemic happened. And for me, I really looked at it as an opportunity because before, working remote was like asking for time off at front. Like there was literally, when you go to our HR tool, it's one of the drop downs you select, are you taking PTO? Are you taking sick time? Or you work from home? So it was like the stigma of I'm doing this thing that's kind of like not good, which I never liked, by the way. But I always said yes. Like if people request something, yeah, of course you can do that. But this was a chance for us to prove, because one, front's a collaborative tool. So if we can't do it, nobody can. If we can just show that we can be more efficient and more productive during this time, it just builds a stronger case for us. So that's how we started. And then just like everybody, we started migrating to different locations. And then once I was able to get to do remote hires, that's when the team really started to grow out.
So then actually they're just physically that they've never been in the office in the first place.
Yeah. And the reason I bring that up is we built this culture before we were remote. So it was like, it wasn't how do you recreate a remote culture, is how do you take this great culture that we've built together? Because we know it's great. Like we love each other. We have everyone's backs. How do we take that and scale that so that everyone can feel that same thing without having to be in the office? And so the first thing we would do is it's a lot of Zoom, to be honest. But it's very intentional. So when I say intentional, we literally make fun mandatory at front. It's something Anthony, my technical support manager, loves to do. So that's his expertise. So every month, at least once a month for an hour, we have 2 different meetups. So we have one for the early East Coast and EMEA, and then for APAC and Pacific, because you can never get everybody in the same place at the same time. And we plan fun events. So whether that's playing video games with each other or doing a virtual puzzle, like that's what I mean by intentional time to connect as a team. The other thing that we do is we have a weekly Q Crush. And so wherever you are in the world, whatever role, you can hop in and do like this, like we're doing, talk live. We have the cameras on and we're just working cases together like we probably would if we were, next to each other. And then it's just, sharing updates in Slack, sharing pictures, like just making time to connect. Like the crazy thing is we actually have the highest engagement in the entire company, like by far. So even though we are the only official remote team left at front, this helps me build a case. We have the highest engagement. You can just see like our team, even though we're not in the offices, often gets voted as the culture carrier. So we have kind of like these kind of awards and rankings, and like every time it's at least somebody, like 1 or 2 folks from my team, which means that they're making their presence felt, even if they're not in person. So it's definitely possible, but you have to be intentional about it. You have to make time for those connections to take place. And we spend a lot of time thinking about this. Like we're like, what game are we going to do next? We got to come up with this list. And and I'm happy to share that actually, because we have this like running list of games and just ideas that you can do with your team remotely. Because I do think that's really important.
I need that list. It's like,
so I'll send it to you.
This is for sure something that is 100% required. I think it's really important that you make it intentional, like you mentioned, like you really make room for it, and people will really get invested in making sure that you have fun and be able to do it. When you say that, like, and the engagement scores are absolutely fantastic. I know that there's some varying opinions around like almost Zoom burnouts a little bit of like, I'm just in virtual meetings all the time and all of this. And of course, you mentioned already, there's a lot of time zone differences and things like that. How do you manage the digital experience of the Zoom meetings and breaking down the barriers of the people behind the Zoom in that sense?
Yeah, so the cadence that we do is I do a team meeting twice a month with my team. So I'm very careful about the Zoom burnout, because even for myself, I will burn out on Zoom if I'm not careful. So I do a just team update meeting twice a month. We do the Q Crush is optional. So this is not something you have to join. If it's like, if you want to connect, you can, but if it's just you're fatigued, you don't have to. So making things same thing. We call it mandatory fun. It's mandatory that you have fun if you join. It's not mandatory that you join. So
I love that distinction.
Yes. So you have to give people the option. So that's how we avoid the burnout, is just we make the space for it to happen, but you don't have to join if you're really not feeling it, because sometimes you just don't want, it's a cameras off kind of day sometimes. But we're actually really light on meetings. If you looked at our team's calendar, that's it. We've got, those 2 optional events. One happens once a month. The other one we do is a virtual cooking class once a quarter. That's also optional. We pay for your ingredients. Somebody on the team, like, we've got such a diverse culture. There's always some dish that somebody knows how to make and it's their specialty. And we always look forward to that. We got to do that live because we did our offsite a few weeks ago. So yeah, I look forward to those things. And the Secret Santa at the end of the year, just these things have become a tradition for us. And so for me, it's already built out into the calendar for, every year that we do.
I love that you say that, it's really about creating an environment where it can happen and really facilitating the process. But it really is a part of, if you want to engage, you want to be there, that's awesome. If it is just that kind of day, totally get it. Like, it's not something you can really, really force in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that we do is for new hires, we pair them with a buddy, and it's typically from a different region and a more senior person, so that, someone you don't normally get a chance to make like deep connections. Like, we have a good connection, right? Because we talk often. And when you're new, especially when you're remote, that's really challenging. So we've set up a buddy system. So whenever you start, so say you started in LATAM, you're in Chile, you probably get paired with somebody on the East Coast in the US. So somebody maybe not will typically talk to, and then they kind of guide you through your first 3 months. We've got really good onboarding on top of that, but just having somebody you feel comfortable reaching out to also helps as well.
Yeah, actually having that, hey, I'm here for you, and actually we can create that kind of connection, some of those moments that matter, where you could go months without talking to somebody in a different region and be like, oh, who are you? I've seen your notes and tickets. Like, it's something separate. I'm curious to dive into the hiring a little bit and kind of the onboarding, since we're kind of in the topic of new starters. When you're doing a hiring process remote and you're going through this like gauging of a person in that sense, of course now you're hiring a bit remote first in the specific areas and regions that you're looking for, but what do you look for? How do you gauge that kind of culture addition or culture fit when you are going through that process?
Yeah, I mean, we have the same, like, if you looked at every region's hiring process, like the doc, it's the same. So yeah, we've tweaked some things to be, more localized. But again, like, for me, it's not so much about the region. I'm really looking for a specific, like, the perfect frontier for support, regardless of where they live. So I use the same standards everywhere. We look for someone who shares our values. We ask questions. Like, something actually that I really look for is this, kind of the size of the company or what they actually did in the company. Because what you see is, especially with other countries, I don't know the company. Like, if anywhere in the US or in the Bay Area, I'm like, oh, they work there, so I kind of get what they do. So with the more international hires, I really try to get an understanding of where they came from. Did they work at Uber? Was it a giant call center? Are they used to being one person to go to? And so actually, when I hired my first APAC hire in Australia, I wanted to make sure that she's done that before. Like, she was the one person, and she actually did that. She started as the first, and she ended up building the APAC team over time for her previous company. So like, that was perfect for me. And I actually found her through Support Driven. So it's just shout out to the SD community. But that's what, you look for different things at different stages. So at this point, we are pretty well scaled out. We're a team of closing in on 30, and each hire has to still add value, and that value changes as your team grows. So I don't need specialists so much anymore. I just need a little more generalist to kind of, build out the roster in the support customer facing teams. And I only promote from within for my manager roles and for my ops roles. So I'm not looking for that. I'm looking specifically when I hire outside for like technical support, customer support folks.
Gotcha. So you're really kind of bringing in, building that culture, and really just identifying those people who, when they are out in their region alone, can do it and feel comfortable alone to build that region.
I think that's important. Like, we're still a relatively small team, especially if you look at EMEA. I think there are 4 people right now, going to be 5. APAC is only 3 today. So you have to be accountable. Like, you have to know what that, we're not so big where you can hide, it's not, it's not a giant corporation where you can kind of just slide by with the bare minimum. If you're not pulling your weight, everyone's going to see, because again, we have this shared Q mentality, and so we've all got to pull our weight and help each other out. And that actually, it works really well for us, because we care about each other. And so we're thinking about, okay, I really want to set up these folks who are about to hop on in APAC for success. So like, let's try to get it down. And APAC's thinking the same thing for Europe, which is let's get it down for them. And it's a cycle of just helping each other out.
I
And
really like that. Yeah, of course. Of course. And I'm really curious, because like you talk about everybody needs to pull their weight, and you can see it visibly. I also have a very small team and a very small company in that sense, where if it's not working, people can feel it, you can see it. I'm curious because I work in a hybrid environment, so we can work from home, we can work from the office, we can work from anywhere. We have 20 days where we can work from anywhere in the world, which is fantastic. It's great. You can go on a trip and still do some remote work. We have the chance to work on those things quite closely in that sense. But I'm curious, when you talk about performance, and this might be a nitty-gritty away from culture a little bit, but it's part of it. How do you manage that remotely? I mean, I can imagine that you have some pretty clear standards and expectations when it comes to remote working. How do you maintain that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same standards I would have if they weren't remote, but we have the thing that's been the biggest game changer. And this was like 3 or 4 years ago, but having clear leveling rubrics, so clear expectations on. So we have 4 levels, depending on which role we're talking about, whether it's customer support or technical support. And we know what those marks are. We know what the benchmarks they need to hit are, whether it's quality, speed, volume. Depending on what level they're at, they will have different variable metrics. And so that kind of takes the whole remote thing out of it, because we have, it's very transparent. And that's another thing about Front is transparency. Like, not only is the shared inbox transparent, our analytics are also transparent. So when I send out weekly reports, everybody has access to see how they're doing. They can see how others are doing, not in a competitive way, but just like, again, this is how we stay accountable for each other as a mid-sized, smaller team. But yeah, it's been a non-factor for me. The other, we don't have the setup that you have, but one thing I do have is you can go to the office. So we do pay for folks to, if they want it, we call them hubs. So say you lived in, I've got somebody named Luke on my team, and they live in a, not in France, but they're welcome to go to the Paris office once a quarter, and we'll pay for their train and their lodging and those things. So we make those in-person connections happen. And it's worked out. Like, we have an office in Chicago, and so we've got people on the East Coast who can go there if they want to meet up. I go to the office, I'm in San Francisco. I'm in a different setup, which we can talk about. And my managers, I make sure that we connect. Either I go to another office to meet with the team once a quarter. So like, I think just a couple months ago, I was in Paris and Ireland to connect with my team there. So to connect with my Paris folks and my French folks, and then to connect with the folks in Ireland. So yeah, it's a blend. It's a hybrid. It's technically remote, but it's hybrid in that we still make opportunities to meet it live. And then we do the annual company meetup as well.
Yeah, which you just came out of, right? You just went to, you just flew out it looked amazing. It looked super fun.
Yeah, we're still high off of that experience.
I mean, when you do have those in-person connections and moments, does it really feel like something is very different? And it's like, hey, I haven't seen you in forever. It's been crazy. Like, finally meeting you in person. How do you feel that how do you make those moments really matter?
Yeah, the crazy thing is I think we talk so often, it doesn't feel like we just met each other. Like, there was somebody in Paris that I swore we met before, but we've been working together for 5 years, and we just have somehow missed each other, but we're that close where it just felt like we're old friends. So not so much of that aspect, but when I do go, I make it count in terms of like the topics we talk about. And so, I'm not everybody's manager, so being able to talk to, like, do skip levels and have really deep conversations. Like, the conversations that I had in Paris were like 2 hours, like, just really like everything. Tell me about life. Tell me about what would keep you here. Tell me about like what's not working, and just that's the most impactful thing if we can walk away with. I think it's the best use of time. Obviously, also having fun. I think it's a recurring theme is we'll go do a dinner, we'll go do like some kind of fun, like a escape room, something. I just think like that's also an important part of it. But yeah, just the only difference is there are some things you probably wouldn't say to your boss on Slack or Zoom, which you might be comfortable saying in person. And that's typically the case. Like, it's like, where was this feedback? Like, we've been for 5 years. Like, you could have told me this anytime, but it's a different comfort level, I think, that when you're in person.
Yeah, I think that's very much the case as well. When you have this much, I don't want to say it's much more real, because these conversations are real. They're different, but being in person and kind of talking makes a little bit of a different environment, at least when you talk about those things. You mentioned you have a special arrangement. We could talk about it. Walk me through that. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I don't think it's controversial. I think I do things a little different than everybody else. So, like I mentioned before, we were not remote, and then we went remote. And then, like everybody else, after the pandemic, it's like, okay, what do we do now? Do we go hybrid? Do we bring everybody back? Those were the conversations that were happening. And so the first idea was just bring everybody back to the office, RTO. And me thinking about, well, everyone's moved and we've hired all over the place where we don't even have offices. So that's not going to work. And I'm the type that I won't just give up. There's always an alternate solution. And I think that's me in a nutshell, is I find a way for everyone to win, which is really hard sometimes. And so, but it also means sacrifice. So for me to win in this scenario, like, I need to do whatever I could do to keep my team remote. Like, they were performing the best that they ever had. I mean, I had all this data. And so asking the executives, like, what are we really trying to solve here? Like, what is, by having support here, what are you looking for? And what their feedback is, like, we want to know what our customers are. So we want that direct line to our customers. We want those in-person meetings. We want to be able to, walk up to someone in support and get feedback right away. And so what I suggested was, I already live in the Bay Area, so I didn't move. I was working from home. So I suggested, what if I work in the office? Like, what if I'm the point of contact? I will attend all the meetings. If you have a question about support, you come to me, and vice versa. If they have a blocker, like if there's a billing thing or a finance thing or a sales thing, I'm their person. I'm the support team's person to go to. So I'm like this middleman of the remote team and then the in-office team. So I'm very hybrid in the sense that I'm remote, but I'm also in the office. And I'm balancing those two things.
So what you're saying is your voice of the customer program is you.
So I recommend this. If you're a support leader or any leader, CX leader, getting pushback, especially now, I think it's happening even more, for your team to come back and be remote, think about offering up, the alternative of you working in the office. Yes, it's a huge sacrifice, but you got to make sacrifices. You got to put the team first, and it's for the greater good. If I could do this one thing that initially I didn't like, now I love, which we can talk about, but it was really hard at first. But if that can help 29 other people keep the work style that they enjoy, then it's a no-brainer for me to do that.
You mentioned it's hard at first. What makes it difficult, and what's made you more comfortable?
Well, Neal, I didn't have kids before the pandemic, so I got used to a very different lifestyle than before. So I was fully working remote, like we had our first baby, got the laptop in the living. You know exactly what I'm talking about. We're the same person. Got the laptop in the it's like, this was just all I was used to. So it wasn't that I didn't like it. It was that I didn't like the way I was being asked to come back, because it felt like it was disrupting my life at that time. Little did I know, is probably the best thing that could happen for me from a career standpoint and like a personal standpoint, because again, kids, I needed the space that I didn't need when they were babies, but like as they get a little older, like toddlers, it got so much harder to work home. I couldn't have this type of conversation if I was home right now. I'm in a co-working space doing this. So it actually worked, it worked out. Like, I would not be posting on LinkedIn if I didn't go in the office. The way that happened was I ran into somebody in marketing in the kitchen. And so these like random conversations and meetings that just happen by bumping into someone happened, and me getting to talk to the head of product and me having more influence and like being in the room and being in the engineering meetings, being in the AI meetings. Like, I am a voice for my team, but also for myself, where I can be more visible, because I listened to one of your previous podcasts, which was it Philippe, I think. And, that's part of it is visibility, and if you want to be more visible, one way is to be in the office. And I'm in the office twice a week, Tuesday, Thursday. But when I'm not, I'm here at this co-working space because this is the best balance for me. I refuse to take work home. I have separate laptops at my office. I've got a locker here that I keep another laptop. And then I've got like a personal laptop at home that I try not to open unless it's an emergency. I've just created these very strict boundaries so that when I am working, I'm focused. And when I'm home, I'm here, I'm present, I'm focused on my family. Because I was getting to a point like in that initial transition where I was getting so stressed out, man. Like reading my work emails and the kids are screaming at me, like, stop, what are you doing? Like, pay attention. And it's been better for everybody, if I'm honest.
Creating those clear boundaries. I know for me and my kids, like, one, my son has run so many more meetings than he should for a 3-4-year-old. Like, and then having those clear boundaries where you can just be present in whichever environment that you need to be present in at that moment as well. I'm curious as well because you mentioned something that's really important, which is breaking down this barrier of when you do work remote, you work from home. Typically, you're working in your home environment in that sense. What would you recommend for somebody to really kind of, for me, when we had COVID, we went remote and I started working from home as well. Not something that I was used to. I've always worked in either in a retail store or in the office or something. So working from home was actually way different for me. And for me, it meant that I started earlier, I ended longer, didn't really get that decompression transition time in that sense where it can kind of encroach. What would you recommend for somebody who is working from home or working in a remote environment to keep that boundary?
Yeah, I actually wrote this guide for new hires when they start. It's pretty outdated now. I think this was 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. So I wrote a guide on like how to keep a good balance. So number one is if you're a parent, because I think that's important. If you are a parent, start early if you can. Like talk to your manager, see if they would be open to that. I'm sure they would. For me, it's my deep focus time. So I'm a morning person. Also, they're sleeping, so I can get more deep work done. I also batch meetings. So again, if this is possible, it's great to have meeting days because for me to be on Zoom, I'd rather either be on Zoom or not. Like if it's this day, like let's knock out all the meetings while I'm in this mode, and then the next day I'm just going to do spreadsheets and projects and like planning and content and those kind of things. So that's my recommendation: is just really block off so that you're not context switching a lot. Take breaks. If you feel the burnout from Zoom meetings, ask if you can do a walk and talk, which is what I would do with my team. Throw on the AirPods, both of you go for a walk, do your meeting as you would, and it forces
That's pretty epic.
Yeah, it forces you to get outside, get some steps in, and but that's it. I think that if you're working from home and you don't have this cool, co-working space like I have, just treat your home like your office in whatever way that means for you, whether that's having a separate laptop or even a separate login if you can't have two laptops. Like the mental thing of this is work, this is home, I think would really help because again, it's the context switching, like context switching from family time to work time to meetings to another meeting. So I think keeping things like clean, so batch them, batch your meetings, start early for deep focus work, and then have days where you specifically, like today's Friday, this is my deep work day. So I will do a call for Neal, but not for anybody else. After this, I'm going to throw my headphones on and just do deep work for the rest of the day.
Nice. I think that's a really solid, clear, actionable plan to make sure that you have this separation. So just to kind of recap a couple of things that we talked about, I mean, going through this transitional phase of making sure that you can create a culture where people can have the flexibility, can work. It comes down to making sure that those meetings and those times are aligned in times that work for them, but also making them quite optional in terms of creating the environment and culture where you want to engage. It's mandatory fun, but it's not mandatory to be there. But if you do be there, it's mandatory to have fun. And really make sure that people have this flexibility and kind of break down those barriers by when you do have those moments in person or those moments of connection, you really make them meaningful to be able to have that kind of connection and just build it into the culture that you have that room and transparency when it comes to it as well. I love it. I have one question for you, Kenji, which is the last question I'm going to ask. And I'm sure because you listen to a ton of the conversations, you know which question is coming. If there's one thing over the course of your career that you've learned so far, is there something that you still stick to today?
Yeah, I stick to this concept called Ikigai. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's a big on Japanese philosophy. I'm half Japanese. My mother's Japanese, so I've lived in Japan. So it's like it's deep in my roots. I keep this with me in every job that I've had, even in my personal life. But it's about finding a way to connect what you do with what you love, which I think both of us have done. I think we both have our Ikigai. So that's my goal, is for everybody on my team, even if that means them not staying in support, that's my goal, is to you should find a place where you can work and you enjoy it. And it's just seamlessly integrates in every part of your life. Like, we post about what we do for our living. How much more Ikigai can you be than we've gotten to? So, but I've taken that approach in every job that I've had, like since retail, like you, I started in retail. Same thing. I love to fold clothes. And so that was my Ikigai. I was like, I'm just going to be the best folder. And so I do that. I always want to be the best, whatever that means. And it changes every year. Like, content is new for me. I just started 6 months ago. So now that's my new focus. That's my new Ikigai, is like, now I want to figure out how to do that even more in my life. So yeah, everyone find your Ikigai. If you don't know what that is, Google it, or ask ChatGPT.
I love it. And you've also written an article on it as well. So
Thank
I would
you.
say that there are resources in the comments below, but there are way too many resources that you've created. So what I am going to say, top tier support, Kenji's newsletter, absolutely fantastic. Kenji's also on LinkedIn, posting all the time about his team and about this culture and about the things that they're doing as well, and being able to build it. I will say the one resource I am going to get from you that will not be there is your list of remote games,
Yes.
because that sounds awesome. And I know that question has come up a lot. Is there anywhere else that people can connect with you, Kenji, or anything else you want people to know?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, find me on LinkedIn. Let's connect. Let's chat. I'm not on LinkedIn just to post. I'm there to connect with people. And so one of my missions this year is to connect more with my team. That's why I traveled, to different countries to connect in person. But also that means meeting up with people who are listening. So if you want to just chat, like, reach out to me. I'm always open to grab time and talk. If any of this interested you and you want to dive deeper, please do.
Nice. Well, thank you, Kenji, for finally joining me for an official conversation. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Neal.